Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert, covering Hollywood veteran writer destroys ridiculous woke TV and movie studios. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. A veteran screenwriter's plot twist on Hollywood's diversity, equity, and inclusion cultural shift. An open letter from a white writer to the film and TV business, and this is written anonymously because he doesn't want to be blacklisted any more than he already is. For the last 20 years, he's been working as a professional screenwriter. Between 2004 and 2018, he was sent on hundreds of meetings with some of the best studio executives, producers, and directors in the business, and he loved it. It was an opportunity to chat with like-minded people who love film, grew up with movies, and were making them at the highest level. They discuss ideas, plot characters, and who's the audience. Maybe chat about subtext and themes. It felt like an episode of Jon Favreau's Dinner for Five. Sometimes you would end up getting work, other times you made a great connection. Everyone was intelligent, film and TV savvy, and had a deep understanding of the business side of the industry. In 2019, things started to change, and quickly. Suddenly, subtext and themes became the main point of discussing a project or intellectual property. The first question in every meeting became, quote, "What can we say with this project?" Or "What can we teach people with this story?" Plot, character, and audience were now secondary and sometimes not even discussed. These new executives weren't savvy and business-minded executives. They were young with no track record or comprehension of the bottom line. When the streaming war started and the money hose was turned on, experienced executives started relying on these young guns to pick up the slack. But the kids were less focused on the hero's journey and more concerned with taking down the patriarchy. Which leads us to the next point. The reality is that for the past 5 years, white, straight, male writers and directors with experience and successful track records have been sidelined. And those track records are key. Those are the guys that do a good job, produce results, and the studios know they can count on. The best thing about hiring people with experience is knowing they're going to do what they've already proven that they can do. Those are almost always the best people to hire for anything. They talked about it over coffee or after screenings. They've essentially been told that because of their race and gender, they need not apply. At one point, their agent told them they couldn't put them up for any open writing assignments or TV staffing jobs because the executives only wanted to hear takes on the material from BIPOC or female or LGBT writers. Some shows even started instituting staffing quotas that 40 to 50% of the writing staff had to be people of color. Many showrunners hate this not because they don't want to hire new writers and foster them. They don't want half their staff coming from a pool of young, inexperienced writers who know nothing about working in a writer's room, production, post, or deadlines. So is this discrimination illegal? Probably, but hey, that's what attorneys are for. And there's no way to find out anyway, because if you ask any questions about this, you're labeled a racist or called out for your white male privilege. If you so much as raise an eyebrow, there's a risk you'll never work again. This may not be obvious at first glance. There sure seem to be a lot of white dudes at the Golden Globes, right? Well, this doesn't impact the top 2% of writers, showrunners, and directors, since they're in the rarefied air where they get work no matter what. It's all the writers with decades of experience working on some of your favorite TV shows and films that are now sitting on the sidelines waiting for work. No institution reinforces this more than the WGA. The WGA, or Writers Guild of America, is the joint efforts of 2 different American labor unions representing writers in film, television, radio, and online media. One glance at their monthly calendar of events shows a Latinx Writers Committee meeting, an LGBTQ+ Writers Committee meeting, a Committee of Black Writers meeting, a Middle Eastern Writers Committee meeting, a Women's Writers Committee meeting, and an Asian American Writers Committee meeting, just to name a few. And just to pursue work, they expect you to fill out these applications. They want to know your sexuality, so your sexual identity. Is it heterosexual or is it LGBTQ+? Are you asexual, bisexual, pansexual, gay, lesbian, queer, unspecified? And how old are you? Are you over 40, over 50, over 60? All of this should have nothing to do with your ability to pursue professional work. Of course this is illegal. Beyond that, they need to know your gender identity. Are you female, transgender, transfeminine, transmasculine, or unspecified? Are you male, non-binary? How about your disabilities? Do you have an autoimmune condition or chronic illness? Are you blind or low vision? Do you have cognitive disorders? Are you deaf or hard of hearing? Do you have dwarfism, limb difference, mental disorder, mobility disability? Are you neurodiverse? Do you have a physical disfigurement we can see? Or do you have some other unspecified disability? What would this have to do with getting professional writing work? How about, have you ever written work that has been well received by your clients? That seems important, but not to these people. Can you imagine if there was a white writers committee meeting? We might be murdered. And the saddest part of all this is that most of the people who would fill that room are some of the most liberal people they know. People who have gone out of their way to foster new and unique voices. Check out the WGA's own 2022 Inclusion and Equity Report and make your own conclusion on the WGA's priorities on this. When creating a writer's profile on the WGA website, there's one box to check if you're heterosexual, 3 choices under transgendered, and 6 under LGBTQ. Not sure what those statistics have to do with writing a great episode of The Witcher, though. This mindset was very present at the last in-house WGA meeting held before the strike of 2023. Every 3 years before they have a new deal with the studios, the negotiating committee sits on stage and members throw complaints at them. And God bless them, they sit there for hours on end listening to a bunch of writers bitch and moan. The complaints at these meetings over the last 2 decades are always the same. How do we get more money and more residuals? In 2023, the meeting had a decidedly different tone. Very few complaints had to do with money this time around. There was a litany of complaints about not enough diversity in the ranks. Young writers asking, quote, how come I've worked 2 years as a TV writer and I'm not a showrunner yet? Even though a position like that should take at least a decade of experience, if not 2, to reach. Quote, how do we make sure that the guild will fight for staffing requirements? The author always thought that to survive in this business, it's a yearly, monthly, and daily hustle. There are no guarantees, especially when it comes to staffing on a TV show. What they took away was, these young Turks think that working in film and TV is just a fun thing that anyone can do, and they can use this opportunity to put their stamp on the world. Can you blame them? It was easy to get here, especially when talent takes a backseat to filling a quota. Why worry? The showrunner and their number one, the most experienced writer-producer outside the showrunner, will pick up the slack and more than likely finish your insipid work. They can't complain about that episode you turned in late or didn't turn in at all, or they'll be called a racist or a bigot or something else, and then they'll get a call from human resources. It's just easier to shut up and run cover for these kids who aren't ready for the big time. The blame for this mess is threefold. Young creative executives with no understanding of the business or what audiences want gained too much influence during the streaming wars. They also took it upon themselves to lead the charge in reinterpreting intellectual property, changing successful comic books, novels, and remakes into projects that had something to say, not to entertain. Why even bother with intellectual property if you don't respect the source material? The WGA followed their lead and threw a huge part of their own membership under the bus in a race to bring in new members. And lastly, this new class of writers who weren't ready yet to step up to the plate worked on a lot of product that the general public didn't want to see and didn't relate to. What happens next is anyone's guess. TV is contracting. There were 600 shows in the last year, and now there are only going to be, from what they hear, only 300 shows. When it comes to film, there are even fewer jobs than ever. If we don't get back to telling great stories and making profitable shows and movies, with artificial intelligence right around the corner, the business may never recover. So let's start having those old school meetings again. The ones where you talk about story and characters and what the audience wants. And let's go back to hiring the best writers. The ones with the skill set and creativity, and not just one with the right skin color or sexual preference. Coming from bounding into comics, Hollywood screenwriter explains how woke diversity hires will be out of jobs under the new WGA deal. And this plays off the other article. In the other article, they talked about how aggressively studios are cutting back on new projects, whether it's film or TV. There aren't nearly as many jobs for these woke writers anymore. The script doctor said, "This is one of the things I didn't like in regards to the guaranteed writer's room, because you have compelled hiring. But it looks like certain members in the union on the negotiating committee have turned that inside out a little bit for the benefit of writers that know how to finish a script and maybe not push too much ideology. Don't get me wrong, there's definitely some veteran writers out there that are drinking the Kool-Aid, but the vast majority of them, the ones that do preach this, are younger. I've been learning through my colleagues that a lot of them have actually spent more time striking and spending time on social media than actually expanding their portfolio of scripts to pitch when the strike is over. And of course, the strike is now over and the deal is done. He continues, so basically what we are seeing here from the youngins is there's going to be possibly less opportunities for them, especially in something like the pre-greenlit or mini room. And that comes down to two factors that he can think of right now. The first one is that the current NBA clearly defines that a showrunner has to be a union worker. So it can't be an internal executive producer like a Kevin Feige. It also gives them a bit more power into who they select for the writing positions in the minimum staffing mini rooms. And it also says that whoever they select has to be approved by the company or the showrunner has to argue for them to be involved. Now, with regards to those mini rooms, you have showrunners that would only a real showrunner, a good showrunner, is only going to hire writers that are going to get value out of their room. Which means if you're a diversity hire and that's all you've got going on for yourself, you are of no value to a showrunner, which means you are not going to get your guaranteed hire over there. And I think that's a good thing, the script doctor elaborated. Quote, the other aspect with regards to the contract pertaining to the mini rooms is that the compelled hiring has now increased. The compelled hiring and the extended time frame for which they have to work on the show, which is like the minimum of 10 weeks. That essentially turns the mini room into something more expensive than the traditional model of developing a pilot, producing the pilot to be screened before an audience test to see whether or not it's actually going to be good, and then giving it the green light to go into an actual series order. The mini room basically tries to force a hit show within a 6-episode or 8-episode or 10-episode structure, get it all written before any of it's filmed, and then push it out there. So the new people, the woke people who don't have the skills but have the right skin color are not going to get these positions. Also, with the production cutbacks, studios are getting more serious about the content they're producing. From Breitbart, Barbie star Issa Rae says black stories less of a priority for Hollywood. Which is great because we don't need black stories, we just need good stories. They apply to everyone no matter what their skin color is. Barbie star Issa Rae claimed black stories have become less of a priority for Hollywood and has considered going the independent route. Rae issued her salvo about Hollywood's alleged treatment of black stories in a recent interview with Porter, citing the industry's recent mass cancellation of minority-centered shows. Quote, you're seeing so many black shows get canceled. You're seeing so many executives, especially on the diversity, equity, and inclusion side, get canned. You're seeing very clearly now that our stories are less of a priority, she said. It's made me take more steps to try to be independent down the line if I have to. Rae also discussed her role in the Academy Award-nominated American Fiction, which satirizes the white liberal elite's commodification of American black identity, and how she has sometimes felt like the film's protagonist, Thelonious Monk Ellison, in her career. Quote, I've been Monk, and I remember in Rae's pre-Insecure web series, The Awkward Black Girl days, even prior to that, feeling so enraged about what wasn't being made. And being mad at who was in the spotlight at that time because I was like, I know we're so much more than what's being presented here. I recognize that hunger of just wanting your work to be seen and attacking the wrong target, she said. Quote, I don't think it's a secret that many white audiences and critics tend to reward traumatizing depictions or their own biased perceptions of what blackness is, Rae said. Nobody cares about blackness, whiteness, redness. People just want to see good stories and good movies. Rae, however, expressed a can-do attitude about her own projects. Quote, I'm writing a couple of different projects, one for myself and one to produce and create for others. And I've been feeling so inspired and excited to get back at it. The industry's in flux, so it's really inspired me to focus and hone in on what stories I want to tell. I've been laser focused on getting these projects up and running. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.